Banner. Hello everyone, it's Warriors NRL Fanatics here. Welcome to tonight's show. It's called the Off-Season Discussion with special guest, actually. Very been fortunate enough to join the one and only Andy Raymond, who's a very well-known person in the media world. You know, he's been around for a long time. But Andy, welcome to the show, actually. It's great to have you on. It's a privilege to have you on tonight.
Christian, the privilege and the pleasure is all mine. I want to know how you're doing. I know you get excited that the rugby league is back, but how excited are you about your beloved Manchester City at the moment? They're up the top, but there's drama. There is big drama for Man City, and they're off the field.
Oh, there certainly is. Yeah, it's a bit of issues at the moment that the club's going through, but. Look, they won this morning, so I'm very happy about that. They beat the Arsenal, the league leaders. So, yeah, it's great for them to be going well. But I'm just looking forward to footy, rugby league season starting up soon. That's what I'm very looking forward to the most. But, yeah, it's great to have you on, Andy, tonight. Been kind enough to give your time up to come on and chat rugby league with me, especially going to discuss the NRL as well, the Warriors especially, my club, the Warriors. There'll be a little bit of a focus on them. And, Andy, why don't we get into it?
Sounds terrific. I can't wait for the footy either, mate.
Yeah, all right. So, Andy, why don't you introduce yourself and what do you do? Like, what is your avenue in the rugby league community? What do you do?
I'm an old bugger now, but I'm still a kid at heart, very immature. And I'm a footy and a dog lover, basically. I have worked in rugby league since 1990, originally with Channel 7 over here in Australia. I moved to Fox Sports in 1997 and enjoyed 23 wonderful years there, broadcasting, commentating, and on the sideline with rugby league. I did boxing, kickboxing, mixed martial arts, some motor racing, some motorcycle racing. I did a little bit of everything in my journey, and when it comes back to it, I'm a rugby league and a boxing tragic. I absolutely love it, mate.
Yeah, no worries. So I've heard you have actually been doing a lot of commentary over the years in boxing. You started off as boxing commentator on Fox Sports, and then you progressed into doing commentary with rugby league. How did you enjoy doing that, like starting that off, like first with boxing and then rugby league?
Terrific. I was lucky enough with the boxing one night, there was an illness in the commentary team, and I got thrown in with about 5 minutes to spare. And from that moment, for the next 20 years, commentated every fight in Australia and thoroughly enjoyed it. It's very different commentating rugby league and commentating boxing. Rugby league, so busy, so much pressure, so many little stories and no time to think. Whereas in the boxing, the way I deliver it, I let the athletes tell the story. If two boxers are in the corner and our camera is in the corner, 6 feet, 3 feet away, and you can hear the punches and you can hear the boxers go, oh, and you can hear the whack, whack, whack. That, to me, is far better entertainment and far better theatre than a commentator yelling, oh, he's punched him, he's good jab, good uppercut, good rip. So with the boxing, there's a term, let it breathe, and I let it breathe. I let the athletes very much be part of the audio entertainment. So doing rugby league and doing boxing, very different disciplines. I never confused the two, but there would have been, look, there's probably been 500 nights or weekends over my journey where I had the boxing one night, the rugby league the next night, kickboxing on a Sunday, and then Monday night football. So it certainly kept me busy. I loved every minute of it, and I still do. I still do. I'm broadcasting in a different manner at the moment, but loving it.
Yeah, in terms of boxing, like what was your favourite, fight that you commentated in terms of boxing?
I would have to say it certainly wasn't the longest. Danny Green versus Roy Jones Jr. And it was a sellout crowd and the loudest crowd I've ever been a part of at the Acer Arena in Sydney. So, there might have been 16,000 people there. And Roy Jones Jr., who's a Hall of Famer, he's a world name. And Danny Green stopped him in the opening round with the most vicious, calculated, but brutal combination of punches I think I've ever seen. And to this day, Danny and I still speak probably every fortnight, and we reminisce about what a wonderful night that was. That we've been great mates for over 20 years. That how it's worked out, he's part of my memory of a wonderful night, and I'm part of his memory of a wonderful night. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's great to hear your story around how you did boxing and a boxing commentator. You became a boxing commentator, and that's awesome to see that. And another avenue is you went into the rugby league avenue as well. Like when you started boxing, did you have rugby league in your mind straight away, or did you start boxing and then it came about?
No, I had footy in my mind straight away. Yep. And, mate, I've been a footy tragic and a boxing tragic since the mid-'80s, since I was a young fella. And I would sit down and I'd watch the footy and I'd watch the fights with my grandfather. My grandfather was a boxer. And we would talk boxing, we'd talk footy. And if someone had have asked me in the 80s, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would have said a football and a boxing commentator. Well, that job didn't exist. There was only 2 games of rugby league every weekend. There was no boxing on television every weekend. So that job actually didn't exist, but that's what I wanted to do. And you fast forward all these years to pay television, and I was able to live out a dream. I really was. And I've never taken it for granted. And every time I've been on camera, every time I've done an interview, every time I've spoken on behalf of a brand, whether it's Channel 7, whether it's Fox Sports, or whether it's wrong side, Unfiltered, I take it really seriously, and I do it with pride.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, just in terms of commentary, and what age did you start off? When you were a child, did you grow up wanting to be a commentator, a sports commentator?
Yeah, I did. Well, my dad was a commentator. My dad was the voice of motor racing in Australia and New Zealand for 30 odd years. And I've never actually told this story, so here's a good one. My first commentary, we used to race BMX over here when BMX in the mid-1980s and early 1980s was massive. They would get 1,000 riders on a Friday night or a Saturday night to the races under lights. I mean, it was huge. And my dad would do the commentary for a bit of fun, but in between races, me as a 10 or 11-year-old would go up and sit there and watch him. And then I started doing a couple of races here or there. So at 10 or 11, I was commentating the BMX just for the crowd that was there. And then I did an indoor supercross when I was 16. It was 1986, and they dressed me up in a tuxedo and wheeled me out in front of 10 or 11,000 people at the old Sydney Entertainment Centre and said, "Off you go." And it was terrific. I loved it. I got a huge buzz.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear, actually, because I do love my motor racing as well. I like a lot of sports. I'm a big sports fanatic. I love my rugby league, NRL, rugby, football. I like a lot of sports. I'm a big sports fan, and I really enjoy watching it. I used to play a sport, but football, but I wasn't really good with it as a child. So I prefer to watch sport more than play it. So
it's safer, and it's safer, especially at my age. Hey, let me interrupt. I can see the comments starting to come in from the crew. Anything you guys want to ask? Absolutely anything. Fire away, Hainsey. I'm glad you think it's awesome. The cloth stuff, the Wobbling Jaw Sports Channel. Everyone, you feel free to ask myself and Christian whatever you want.
Yeah, feel free to ask Andy any questions you have, guys. Put them in the chat, and we'll answer them. So, just back on to the rugby league world now. Obviously, you talked about how you did some motor racing. You did a bit of work for motor racing as well, but rugby league. And when did you start rugby league, like as a commentator? When did you start from that avenue?
1997, when I got to Fox Sports, and I was just doing sideline for Super League in the Super League year, which Fox Sports had exclusively. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Respected everyone I worked with, and that's how I was brought up, respecting your elders, basically. And I respected the players. I respected the people that I worked with on the broadcast for Fox Sports. But in 1998, it changed. Everyone see Hasbulla then? In 1998, it changed, and I didn't have a position for a couple of years because they had to streamline the business. And then I think I came back in 2000, 2001 as part of the full-time crew for, 19 or 20 years, and loved it. Loved it. You know what? I actually enjoyed the sideline more than the commentary, which is a bit weird to say that, but the sideline and the interviews, I could be me a lot more. Yep. And I'm sitting on the sideline at the footy and watching the footy. I mean, how bloody good is that?
Yeah, I was going to ask you on that, actually, because you did a lot of sideline commentary, and I was wondering if did you ever thought about wanting to be like a main commentator in the box, or did you just enjoy wanting to be a sideline commentator?
I did it for probably 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
And look, I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. Really, really weird. That's the job that most people aim for in the television industry. They want to be the lead commentator. But I enjoyed more doing the sideline, and I made it my own, whether it was a story, whether it was some stats, whether it was a bad dad joke or whatever it was, or whether it was just passion, whether it was just my passion shining through. That's the job that I love doing, the sideline.
Yeah, no worries.
I can see a couple of questions coming in. What's the best game I've ever called and the most iconic call you've ever made? Best game I've ever called. Now, try and put yourselves in this position, and I'll tell you straight up, I'm a Parramatta tragic. Absolutely love them. I grew up in the Parramatta area. I played my junior footy in the Parramatta area throughout the 80s when there was Sterling, Kenny, Growth, Cronin, Ella, Price. Loved them. So 2009, I got to call week one of the semi-finals St George Illawarra versus Parramatta, and it was a day that Jared Hayne went absolutely berserk and scored maybe the best try you'll ever see. And so that's the game. It was a terrific game, but put yourself in my shoes. You're a footy tragic, you're a para-tragic, and you get to call your club in a semi-final that they win. For a footy fan, it just doesn't get much better than that. I mean, it was sensational. As far as iconic calls, I get reminded from Danny Green regularly that my line when he beat Roy Jones was, to become a legend, you've got to beat a legend, and Danny Green has done just that. So that one, and one that I still get from a bunch of guys, especially players, when a fight would start on the football field, back when you're allowed to fight, I don't know why, but I would always say as they started running in, they are coming from everywhere. And mates from back in the day, still when they see me for the first time, do the impersonation of they are coming from everywhere. So, yeah, a little bit of fun.
Yep. So just there's another question up here from the Wobble and Jaw Sports. So he's asking here, how does Andy recollect his commentary where Danny Williams, the O'Neill incident happened at Leichhardt?
Yeah, the Danny Williams, Mark O'Neill incident.
Yeah.
Here's a tip for you. In the first month of the season, I have Mark O'Neill on the podcast, and for the very first time, we run through that night. It was, for those that don't know, there was a bit of niggle in the game.
Yeah.
And Danny Williams and Mark O'Neill had been at each other, but it was fair and it was legal. It was just hard footy, and it was trying to dominate. Now, something has happened. Danny Williams has been tackled by Mark O'Neill. Williams gets up and plays the ball, and Mark O'Neill turns to his side to run off to the defence, and Williams has chased him, and King hit him and knocked him out. And it was horrific. It really was. It is the single nastiest and most average thing I think I've ever seen on a football field. And on the night, as I'm quite sure the Wobble and Jaw Sports people will remember, on the night I gave Danny Williams a serve, but it is a serve that I honestly think he deserved. I think it's a moment of madness, and I think all these years later he'd regret his actions from that night, because he was a better player and a better bloke than that Danny Williams, but that one stained him. Oh. Have I been paused? Have I paused something? If anyone can hear me, I am not very technical, so this is a battle. Hopefully you're talking to Christian. Hopefully Christian is there. I don't know what sync is paused it means. The Wi-Fi is on full signal here. I'm too old for technical issues. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah. Can you hear me now?
You haven't paid your Wi-Fi bill, Christian, have you?
It does have. I sometimes do have some issues with the internet. So I don't know why, but are you back? You can hear me now, right?
I got you, buddy.
Yeah, sorry about that. But anyways, yeah, we'll get back to it. So, like I said there, you're not currently doing any commentary at the moment, but you're doing some stuff for Triple M as well, and you're doing your podcast now, Andy Raymond Unfiltered, which How long have you been doing your podcast? Like, how long have you when you started, like how long you've been doing it for?
It's about 2.5 years now, and I've done far too many episodes. It's far too much work, but it's been terrific. The stories are excellent, and it's something I'm really proud of is also the contacts and the friendships that I've built up over the years. Every player that I've asked to do an interview has more than willingly jumped on. I've actually got a former State of Origin star coming over here to home tomorrow to do an interview while he's in town. Really enjoying the podcast. And look, if you haven't listened to the podcast, really happy with the fact we're the only podcast that talks with the players every single episode, and none of our episodes ever date. The way I construct my stories and construct my interviews, you can listen to any episode at any time and it will make sense. So we don't talk about this weekend's game, or we don't review the weekend game. We talk footy in general, and there is a million different stories in rugby league. And it doesn't matter if it's Ruben Wiki, Stacey Jones, or the current guys like Wade Egan and Luke Metcalf. All those guys have been on the show. And they've all got really wonderful stories, Christian. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's serious. We have a little bit of everything, mate.
Yeah, that's awesome, because I do watch. I listen to your podcasts all the time. I really enjoy them, and they're great to listen to during the week. And when you have your free time, spare time, they're great to listen to. And it's not all just serious footy talk. It's a bit of stories telling as well. So I really enjoy your podcast, and I think you do a great job there with what you do.
Appreciate it.
So yeah, what is your favorite guest you've had on the podcast? Like, do you have one particular or?
Yeah, look, I'm going to hit you with a surprise one, because it certainly surprised me. In the mid to late 70s, early 80s, there was a Newtown and Balmain player by the name of Neil Pringle, who was a household name. He never went on to play for New South Wales or for Australia, but everyone knew who Neil Pringle was. He was a real character. And his story absolutely blew me away. We might have spoken 20% football, 80% life. And there is more tears from both of us in that episode than the rest of the podcast. It is perhaps the best interview I've ever done, any sport, any person. So if you're looking for something, it's a life chat. It really is. It's a life chat. The Neil Pringle episode is next level. I loved it.
Yeah, that's awesome to see. And just look at some of the viewers with some questions here. So the question here from Hainsey, he's asking, what was it like being on Bloke in a Bar?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, a little bit of fun. I didn't really know Denon at all. I don't think we might have said hello in passing a couple of times over the years. It was nice to go and have a chat with him. It was nice to get a bit of crap off my chest, which I did. And it was nice to put myself back out there, but thoroughly enjoyed Denon, who's a loose unit. And we had a bit of fun. Yeah.
So a question here from the Clough stuff. He's asking, as a Warriors fan, we don't see a lot of acknowledgement from the Australian broadcasters such as Fox League. It's like we aren't even noticed. Is there a particular reason why that's the case?
You don't see a lot of acknowledgement. I think more alarmingly, you don't see a lot of knowledge from commentators and broadcasters in the TV space. I think the Warriors are largely, they are forgotten. If I hear another commentator on TV say, oh, the Warriors' huge forward pack, that was the case 25 years ago and 20 years ago. Right. But for the last decade and a bit, the Warriors would actually have one of the smaller forward packs. But some guys, when they're stuck for something to say, they say the first thing that comes into their mind at the expense of saying what is factually right or what is current. I'm a massive Warriors fan. I'm a fan of the people from Cameron George all the way down. I'm a fan of the brand. A lot of pressure on the Warriors, not only being a one team, but a one country, team.
Yeah.
I don't think they get their pennants. But okay, if we're going to look at it realistically, performances have to improve consistently.
Exactly.
And once their position on the ladder improves, everything improves, including acknowledgement, I guess.
Yeah, just a couple more questions I want to ask you before we get into the actual footy chat. So, if there was to be one TV company that would ask you to come back on, would you ever consider coming on as like a guest panelist or a commentator, or would you just think it's not in your?
Yeah,
how would you think?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to look at the business side of it. But look, I want to stay involved in footy, and it's all I know. I've been a commentator since I left school. So, this old dog, I can't go and learn something new. The old dog, new trick thing. Look, I would have a look at it and see what the deal was and what they wanted me to do and how they wanted me to do it. I was very lucky at Fox for a lot of the time there. Not all the time, but a lot of the time I worked with really good people who put a real element of trust in me where I could push boundaries and be naughty and cheeky without being rude. I could be fun without taking it over the top, and I could be serious without, boring everyone. So they let me do my own thing for a lot of my time at Fox, and I'm really grateful for that. I've worked with some terrific people and some terrific operators. So, if I was given a level of freedom to be myself, I'd have a think about it, mate. Oh, Christian, you haven't paid your Wi-Fi bill. I think the crew knows that already. And see, I don't know if you can see me and hear me just sitting here talking to myself. Hey, what about, there he is, Hasbulla, the great man. Oh, what about the other side of me? 2 Andy Raymond heads. There it is. Oh, absolute nightmare. My wife actually helped me put that up. She said the poster's better looking than you are. There you go. Hainsey, you've come in with a question. I'm going to take over here because I'm assuming you can hear me. Someone let me know, actually. Someone let me know. Oh, you can hear me. So this is Andy Raymond, Unfiltered. I've taken over Warriors NRL Fanatics. I'm the new CEO. Christian has kindly stepped aside, which there he is. Hasbulla is the Chief Financial Officer. Any advice on how to get your foot in the door regarding sports media? Very different from when I came in, mate. When I came in, first up, I was really lucky. My dad worked at Channel 7. My dad was the boss at Channel 7. So I was, very, very fortunate in that. There he is, Christian.
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah, no, we didn't say anything. We didn't say anything nasty about you. I didn't say that I'm taking over Warriors NRL Fanatics or anything like that. And I'm actually, I've launched into. We've figured out that Hainsey and the crew can still hear me, and I'm just answering a question regarding the sports media. And as I was saying, when I got in, I did work experience at Channel 7, but for 2 years, I would go up on a weekend, no pay, nothing official, and I'd watch. But I would also make coffee. I'd go and get the lunches. I'd clean the bins. I would do the crap work. The work experience kid does.
Yes.
Once that was done, I'd sit down and I'd watch how these reporters, presenters and commentators would do their thing, and I would talk to them and I would ask them questions. And the one thing I've been really blessed with in my life, and this may surprise you because when I start talking, I generally don't stop. I'm a bloody good listener, and I listen to everyone about everything, and I was a sponge and I absorbed all this information, and that has helped me develop into the person and the professional I am today. But getting the foot in the door these days, politely don't take no for an answer. You can ask to be a part of something. You can tell them how much you want something. You can tell them how much you will come in and do it for nothing. You just wanted to observe. You just want to learn. Be respectful, be honest, be polite, and keep making phone calls. Eventually, someone's going to say, okay, let's let this kid come in and take a look. But if you do it respectfully, honestly, and politely, there's the first start.
Yeah, well said there. Yes, apologies, but what happened before? I just cut out before. My phone overheated, so it said on iPhone overheated, so that's why I just cut out.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it does that. It's just, I don't know. I'm not sure why, but anyway, Look, just one more question before we get into actual rugby league talk. You told me you were a Parramatta Eels fan. I already knew you were a Parramatta Eels fan. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. How did that come about? Like, did you support them as a kid from the family side, or And how long have you been a fan of them? And which games, like in your memory and history, were your favourite ones to watch? And if past and present.
The first game I can actually remember. Something must be wrong with my bloody memory, because the first game I can remember is I was 15 years of age, but the 1986 grand final. And that was Parramatta versus Canterbury. Parramatta won, pardon me, in a very low scoring game. And I was there at the ground. And that's my first real memory of rugby league. What a memory too. You know, if that's my first memory, Parramatta's last premiership, 1986. We were season ticket holders at Parramatta Stadium the first year it opened, which I think was 86 or 86, 87. I think it was 86. The family was season ticket holders down there for a number of years, and loved it. Absolutely loved it, and still do, and still waiting for that next bloody premiership.
Yeah, so who is your favourite Parramatta Eels player currently and past that you enjoy watching?
Past, I've got on the top line here, Peter Sterling, Brett Kenny, Ray Price, Mick Cronin. On the line below them, I've got Steve Ella, Eric Groth, Jared Hayne, and then 1,000 guys after that. I enjoy and really enjoy the way Regan Campbell-Gillard goes about his football. I enjoy Regan Campbell-Gillard as a bloke too. Very similar to me in many respects. He's an honest dude. He's just a good dude. He's obviously a lot better football player than I am or was. I enjoy a lot of them. I enjoy and have enjoyed watching the development of Clint Gutherson. Being a footballer is so much more than the 80 minutes on a weekend, which is why I still get angry, upset, confused when I see crap headlines about football players doing stuff on the weekend that they shouldn't. Being a professional athlete is so much more than just the result on the weekend. And Clint Gutherson has really grown into a tremendous footballer, but a tremendous leader and a really tremendous young bloke. I've known Clint since before his debut. I remember watching him over at Manly in SG Ball, I think it was, so 17s, 18s. And I've really got a kick out of watching him mature into a great young man.
Yeah, I mean, Clinton Gutherson, he's a very, I think he's come on leaps and bounds the last couple of years. Definitely, he was at Manly, now he's at Power, and he's a good leader there at the club. And I think he's a pretty underrated player, actually, Clinton Gutherson. I do rate him quite highly. So, on to the NRL discussion now, and regards to what happened. Go back to last year, actually, 2022.
Yeah.
Now I think we saw some surprises in terms of the ladder last year with the rise of the Cowboys, the North Queensland Cowboys, who a lot of people had them as the wooden spooners. A lot of people weren't high on the Cowboys, because of the previous year. Cowboys didn't have a great year, and they finished in the top 4. The Sharks finishing in second as well, under Craig Fitzgibbon there, and the Panthers also making history going back to back. Now, what were your thoughts on the 2022 NRL season, just briefly, and what were your thoughts on how Parramatta went as they made it to a grand final?
I'll start with Parramatta. I was absolutely delighted. Really weird last year. I was more excited and more emotional in the Eliminator to get to the grand final than I was for the grand final. I was almost happy that we just made it, and Penrith kicked our ass and deserved, back-to-back premierships. I think it's terrific for the club, for the people around the club, for Brad Arthur, who is a very good man and faces undue pressure. Tia, I'll give you an insight, and this is genuine. There's no BS. Whoever's coaching at Parramatta and whoever is at Parramatta is always going to have a tough gig. Parramatta, since before the internet and before clickbait, Parramatta stories sold newspapers. Parramatta stories would create ratings on the nightly news. So if you were doing a Parramatta story, you knew you were going to sell newspapers. You knew your news was going to rate well tonight. Now, a Parramatta story creates clickbait and creates a buzz. So as a result, a lot of companies and a lot of journos pick the crap out of Parramatta, make up nonsense just to get that clickbait, which I absolutely hate. So I thought Brad Arthur was under extreme pressure, and I think he's done a terrific job. And that getting to the GF takes a bit of that pressure off him. The Cowboys, they were the story of last year. In my eyes, I love nothing more than watching the story of the year unfold. And no one gave them a snowball's chance in hell of making the top 8 or the second last weekend. We just didn't. And they showed how much of sport and how much of rugby league is mental, as in, psychological, because the players hadn't changed that much apart from Chad Townsend. They found confidence, they believed, and they kicked ass. I thought the Sharks were fabulous as well. Now, a lot of people over here anyway aren't rating the Sharks as anything special for 2023. We've got a siren going past here in sleepy Queensland, so I don't know. Someone's cut themselves cooking. I think the Sharks are going to improve, and I think I'm one of the only ones over here that's saying I think the Sharks will improve. Their consistency last year was sensational. They've got a couple of old heads there. They've got stability with a new coach and a new coach that's now signed a multi-year contract. So, no, I think the Sharks are good.
Yeah, I think the Sharks last year, they did very well. Just reading this comment here by the Wobbling Jaw Sports channel. He's a massive North Queensland fan. It's Sam Rebel there. He's saying, yeah, this is why I need to buy Mr. Raymond a case of beer, bottle of premium spirits as a Cowboys fan.
Bless you, legend. Bless you. Hey, you'll be happy with the podcast. Just last night, put up an episode with Reece Robson. Terrific little chat with a terrific little fella.
Yep. So just to hear a comment here by the Wobbling Jaw Sports channel. He's saying something here that the CBA that's being tickered with at the moment. What has been your opinion? And both parties have dealt with it and the new terms that have been agreed to principle. As are you for or against?
I'm going to kick this answer off in a different fashion.
Yep.
And say, to me, the most boring talk in the world is the off-field stuff in rugby league. It's like talking about referees. Does my head in. Anyway, we're talking about it because Wobbling Jaws asked. I think both sides could have handled it a lot better. I'm not a negotiator. I'm not a business person, so I don't understand the process that it goes through. My way of thinking, and I might be completely off here, guys, but if you've got two parties and an agreement has to be made, and an agreement is going to be made at some stage, the best way to make that agreement is getting these two parties, sitting them in a room and saying, you're not going anywhere until we come up with something. But playing it out in the media, playing it out in social media, it's not the way I go about things. They've got to come to an agreement. The players aren't going to walk away and the NRL's not going to walk away because individually, neither has got anything to offer us. So they need each other. They have to come together. So you and you sit down in a room. We're going to lock the door. We're going to give you 100 coffees and 100 Big Macs. Work it out. And when you're done, you can come out. But until then, sit down and shut up.
Yeah, well said. Look, I don't really focus too much on that sort of stuff. I just purely look at the footy side and instead of worrying about what's going on in the off-field sort of stuff. So, one more thing on last season, and then we'll talk about the Warriors. So, what were your thoughts on the Nico Hines winning the Dally M last year, and what were your thoughts on that Penrith side that did go back to back? Because it was history making the first time that we've seen a team go back to back in a very long time.
Yeah, they were terrific, Penrith, and thoroughly deserved it, and they're going to be equally as dangerous this year. They've got a group of young players that get along very well. They enjoy their football, and last year, you could say probably 13 or 14 of that grand final squad was playing their career best footy. You're not going to beat a side like that when they're all playing career best footy. Nico Hines, Dally M, terrific story. I thought it really was. I recall Nico very clearly in the under-20s playing for Manly, couldn't secure a spot at Manly, ended up going into Central Queensland and playing Q Cup, got a chance at Melbourne. One of those guys that I was surprised never got a chance earlier because I think he's a superstar, and I think he's a superstar in a couple of positions. I actually think he could end up a lock forward as he grows into his body. He's a big, rangy kid, Nico Hines, and I think maybe he ends up a lock forward, which might surprise a few of you. But he can play 1, 6, 7. He could play in the centres. I would have no hesitation throwing him back row or lock if I needed it, if there was an injury. I thought it was terrific. And he's a good young fella. He's a good young fella that's been through a whole lot of crap the last 2 weeks too, but he's handling it well, and I wish the kid nothing but success.
Yeah, so moving away from the NRL now and discussing my club, it's the New Zealand Warriors. Now, the last couple of years have been very tough for this club, the
Yep.
New Zealand Warriors, especially due to the COVID-19 pandemic from 2020, 2021 to 2022.
Yep.
There was a lot of number of changes, relocating, being based in Australia for a long time, squad changes as well. What is your opinion? How did you feel about the Warriors at the time and what they went through during those stages?
Absolute superstars. Remarkable leadership from Cameron George, Nathan Brown, and the senior playing group. Because the CEO, the coach, and the senior playing group, if they come to a resolution, the younger guys will follow. They really will. And the young guys in a footy club put their trust in the more senior players. So nothing but respect and admiration for what the Warriors did. And I've got a wonderful working relationship with the Warriors, and that will continue. But look, the time's come for them. It has. The time has come to perform. I think this is a top 8 football side. I think you can lock in 5 or 6 sides for the top 8. I think I can dismiss 3 or 4 sides from the top 8. And I think the rest of them, I think there's 6 or 7 sides, 8 sides that are fighting for 2 positions. This Warriors side, if fit, is a top 8 footy side. Couple of issues. I'm still not convinced on the centre pairings. They're going this weekend with Williami and Pompey. Not sure. I don't know whether lack of centres is going to mean at some stage Chance Nickel Klukstar moving from fullback into the centres to cover a position, maybe Tamari going to fullback and Luke Metcalf into the halves.
Yep.
That's not how I would set it up at the start of the year. But look, if you guys get one injury in the centres, I think we've got an issue. I love the forward pack for this weekend. I really do. Adam Fanua-Blake, Wade Egan, Mitch Barnett. They're going to play Barnett as a front rower, as a lock. There really isn't, guys, any difference between jerseys 8, 10 and 13. They play in the middle of the field. Their role is pretty much the same, and that's where Mitch Barnett, I believe, plays his best footy, in the middle of the field. So you've got Adam Fanua-Blake, Mitch Barnett, and Tohu Harris. You've got Bunty, you've got Jazz Tavanga, and you've got Tommy, that can all play as interchanges in that middle. Obviously, Jazz can also play at 9 if there's an injury. I really like the edges, the edge forwards. Murata Niokore on one side. Jackson Ford's been named there curiously this week. Yeah. I would think Josh Curran and or Bailey Sirinen maybe shores up a spot there for round 1. And there's some really class touches in that back row. Three big guys, big strong kids, but they've also got a bit of football smarts about them and a bit of ball playing. And if you get a back rower that can hit the line and then drop the pass, sensational. I think Dylan Walker will be terrific for you this year. Depth, a bit of an issue. Mate, yes. I'm gonna toss this one out there from the get-go here. Sean Johnson, mate, under immense pressure. Immense pressure. I've never been the Sean Johnson fan that a lot of other people have. Sure, brilliant at times, just not brilliant enough. I think that the difference between his best and his worst game is far too much for him to be considered one of the greats. I think he starts the season and unless he kicks ass, he's not going to finish the season in first grade. Luke Metcalf, who I've had a bit to do with, terrific young bloke, very disciplined young bloke, unbelievable footballer. And you guys have only just got a very little glimpse into that over the last fortnight. Keep your eye on Luke Metcalf. Can play one. I would rather see him play at 7 or 6. But the pressure's on Sean Johnson like never before. And give it 12 months, and you can throw Ronald Volkman into that equation because he's coming. He's a first grader too.
Yeah. I mean, I like what you said there in regards to those players and regards to Sean Johnson because last week he didn't play in that trial game against the Tigers, and this week he's been named to play against Melbourne. And unfortunately, Luke Metcalf's gone down with an injury, so he's out for the next couple of weeks. He pulled a hammy, so. It's a shame that that's happened, but we've got also Ronald Volkman there in the as cover as well if Sean doesn't play well. So, we've got Volkman there. I think Tamari Martin's pretty much going to be locked in that starting side, especially. And, what you talk about Sean Johnson being the most under the most pressure this year for the Warriors because he's been a senior player and, he's been around for so long. And who's a player you're particularly, excited about, like a signing that the Warriors have signed that you can't wait to watch?
I think Murata and Mitch will be good in the middle of the park. Traditionally, the Warriors have done best when there's a mix of New Zealanders and hard-nosed Aussies. Steve Price, Kevin Campion, Michael Luck come to mind. I love what these two bring, just a little toughness to add to the finesse. Good footy side again. Look back over the last 2 years, and you'll see where I'm going with this. Penrith haven't had any injuries, significant injuries at finals time. Last year, they had Jerome Luai out for 5 weeks before the finals. They had Nathan Cleary suspended before the finals. The previous 4 or 5 years was dominated by the Roosters and the Storm. No significant injuries.
Yes.
So much of what happens in September is determined by injuries and who gets there. Now, each side is praying they don't get 3 serious injuries. So we'll take one out, so 2 serious injuries. If, for argument's sake, I'll pick Adam Fanua-Blake.
Yep.
And I will pick Tamari Martin. If those 2 players are injured at the back end of the year, playing finals, it's a tough assignment. But you do that. You do that with a lot of footy sides. You do it with the Cowboys. Take Jason Taumalolo and Scott Drinkwater out. Wow, different footy side all of a sudden.
Yeah, and I think for me, obviously going into the season is how the spine combines. I think you got to have a very good spine to do well in this competition, the NRL. I think last year or the past couple of years, we've had a number of changes in the spine. I mean, Egan's been pretty consistent in the 9, but we haven't had a full spine on the field consistently more regularly. We've had a lot of changes. We've had CHT in the halves. We had Johnson in the halves. We've had a few changes near and then. So I think the importance is the spine, especially looking to see how that combines. And I think if that combines pretty well, then the team could be very threatening. And I think forward pack is so far, I think it's pretty good, but I think we're lacking in that in the prop position there, a bit of depth there. But we have
a little bit of depth there, mate. I think you're exactly right. A little bit of depth there. If one of the 2 front rowers goes down, effectively Tohu moves up into jersey 8 or 10. I'd like to see Curtis Sirenen given an extended go at 13. I think he's the modern day 13. He's a big kid. I love what Trev Gillis and Port Hard have said. One, Sean reacts in broken play but doesn't create. Bingo. and Sean needs to start putting his head in dark places. Yep, I fully agree, but Sean's a mature player now. I don't see too much changing in Sean's makeup or in Sean's game. He's got to where he is and the level he is on his superstardom and his brilliance. I don't see a big change in attitude or talent from Sean. Look, I hope he is up to the challenge. I hope he's still got, the fire in the belly and the desire to do it. I'm just fearing it could be a longer year for Sean. I really am.
Yeah, and we'll see how he reacts this week, because he saw the younger guys play last week particularly well, like Luke Metcalf and that. So he's going to have to come out there and make a bit of a statement that he still wants to, be that sort of player where he starts week in, week out throughout the season.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see how he goes in the trials against Melbourne this week. And both Warriors and Melbourne have named very strong sides for their final preseason hit out as well. So that's going to be really interesting in Christchurch from the Sunday afternoon. So, yeah, looking forward to that. But you talked about some weaknesses in the side. What do you think it's pretty much depth in the forwards? Or for me, it's depth in the forwards. Or you said the centres, right? Centres.
Yeah.
You're not worried about the centres. That's right.
Yeah, I'm not convinced on the centres, and I say that respectfully to the two guys that have been named this weekend.
Yep.
Braden and Adam. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. You got a lot of back rowers.
Yes.
Maybe Murata Niokore into the centres if you need if you need to play a more defensive game, if you need to tighten up your defence. Murata played that role for Parramatta exceptionally well over the last 2 years. Not a full-time centre, much better in the back row, but geez, he was good. We may see Murata at different times over the course of the year under Andrew Webster into the centres. Just a little weak on when you look at some of the bigger sides for me.
Yeah, because our centres probably for me in round one is probably going to be Viliami Valera and trying to think of who else could partner him. I think it'll be Dallin on the wing and I think fullback will be CNK because I think Andrew Webster's already come out in the off-season. He's saying that the fullback will be CNK and the halves will be Tamari Martin Johnson. He's also come out and said Dylan Walker will be 14, but Luke Metcalf played well last week, so I know he's now injured, but it's still debatable where Dylan Walker comes into the side. Well, what are your thoughts? Where do you think Dylan Walker is going to fit into the side?
I don't know.
Yeah.
He will fit in, but I don't know where. And I say I don't know where because you're going to have a back rower on your bench, either Curran or Sirinen, with Niokore as a back rower starting. You're going to have Dylan Walker on your bench. I don't think you can carry Jazz Tavanga on your bench because then you've got very small bench and only one genuine prop. So I don't know. I don't know what happens between Jazz and Dylan and a back rower and then, a Bunty as a prop. Most sides pretty much are putting 2 or 3 middles out of the 4 on the interchange on, ready to go. So I'm going to be really interested in how Andrew Webster makes his rotations and who he selects for his rotations.
Yeah, I mean, on Andrew Webster, look, so far he's come from the Panthers system, and he's had success there being assistant to Ivan, and he's coached around clubs as well. He's coached a bit of first grade for the Tigers. What's your thoughts? What was your thoughts when the Warriors appointed Andrew Webster as the head coach? Because at the start, I was sort of not too sure, and I wasn't too warming to it, but due to with the off season so far, what I've been hearing and what he's been saying in his interviews and radio chats and that, and I think he's showed that he can take this club moving forward. Actually, I believe he can. What was your thoughts on Andrew Webster? As in coming into the NRL, he's not as experienced as a lot of the other coaches out there, but he's been around the game for a bit. So yeah, what was your thoughts on Andrew Webster, like coming in as a head coach for the Warriors?
Caught me by surprise, I've got to say. I didn't see that coming at all. Nathan Brown, the former coach, was part of the decision-making process. And Nathan has got some terrific things to say about Andrew Webster, and that sells me. That puts a level of confidence in me. I think you had to go for a younger coach as opposed to recycling an older coach. And I'm going to be really honest here. I've been lucky enough over 30 years to spend time on the training paddock with every single coach there has been, and to watch them and see what moves they've got, how they communicate with players, how they run their side, how they run their team. Not a lot changes from training session at Parramatta to a training session at the Warriors to a training session at the Broncos. Not much changes. In terms of how football sides play, it's the same game plan, 90% of the same game plan for all 17 footy sides. I think Andrew Webster needs to be fresh. He needs to be confident that he's got that seat for the entirety of his contract. The last thing we want is another coach to sign on and everyone starts getting nervous after, a poor start to the season. Tough gig, really tough gig, a coach's gig. They get paid bloody well, but they bloody earn it too. They really, really do. Wishing Andrew all the very best this year. Haven't had a lot to do with him, but any interaction I've had with him, a very, very decent bloke, very decent footy mind.
Yeah, well, I watched a live show on they're called the Ruin Hammer. They're Warriors supporters based in Australia. They did a live show and they had Andrew Webster on there the other night. And what he was discussing was what you like to hear as a fan, how he approached coming seasons as a club, so as a coach. So yeah, I think so far, I think what I've been listening to, what I've heard, I think so far it's been pretty good by Andrew Webster. So fingers crossed, he can take this club moving forward. So yeah, I'll just go through some of the comments here. So Port Hard saying, can Walker play centre? Was he down on speed? Seems he could cover a few positions. Why not centre?
Yeah, look, if it Dylan Walker can play centre, absolutely. And I actually think that's where he plays his best football. I don't think he's the natural decision maker that a 6 or a 7 are. That I don't think he's got that in his game at the moment. I think he needs to be told a little bit on the field where to go and what to do, and that's not a slight. That's his game. I'd be really happy with Dylan Walker in the centres. That's a great call, Port. And I think he's quick enough, mate. I think he's quick enough.
Yeah. Just a comment here from Bandit here saying, "Hey Andy, I love your work, but what was your favourite NRL moment called as a commentator?"
Hey Bandit, I spoke earlier about being a Parramatta tragic, mate, and in 2009 I got to call them in I think it was the Eliminator semi-final against St George Illawarra, and it was one of those afternoons where Jared Hayne was just untouchable, and he beat, I think he beat 112 players on the way to the try line and scored a beauty. So for me, mate, that was a highlight.
Yeah. So just one more thing in regards to this season, in regards to the Warriors. What are your predictions for the season? Because a lot of people are really writing the Warriors off. A lot of people have got a spot them for wooden spooners, and I think that's personally, I think that's a bit of a stretch. I mean, I know we finished 16th last year, but I think this year is going to be a lot different. I'm not going to say we're going to have a massive drastic turnaround. I think it's going to take the next couple of years to get going. but I do believe we can make the top 8 this year. I really do personally believe we can contend for a top 8 spot. But what is your predictions for the season? Do you think the Warriors can challenge for a top 8 spot, or do you think they are going to miss out on top 8?
I think the Warriors are one of 6 or 7 or 8 sides that are going to battle for the final 2 or 3 spots. And a lot of that's going to be dependent on injury, not just to the Warriors, but on those other 6 or 7 clubs. Almost a last man standing. One thing that has to improve, and I hope it does, the Warriors lose 3 games a season every season that they simply just they shit themselves, and it just happens, and it's happened for too long. Got to get that out of the game, because there has been a couple of occasions over the last decade where those games have cost them 6th or 7th spot and a final.
Yes. Yeah. Like you said there, I think it's really important also the start of the season, because we take on the Newcastle Knights in round 1, and then we've got the Roosters, we've got the Cowboys. Yeah.
It's me again, everyone. Oh, he's back. Christian's back.
I'm back. Yeah, like I said there's some tough games ahead, and we've got to win those first couple of games. I think personally, from my point of view, is home ground advantage. Making sure that New Zealand is a fortress to go to, Mount Smart. We need to win majority of our games at home, because we're generally a team that struggle on the road, especially going to Australia. We don't generally win a lot of games in Sydney or Queensland or Melbourne. You know, we don't tend to do well there. So, yeah, what's your thoughts on that? What I've just said there in regards to the Warriors needing to make Mount Smart a home ground fortress?
Look, it's logical, and every single coach and every single coaching team is having those thoughts at the moment. You're not going to win 100% of your home games. You need to be aiming at 8 out of 10 home game wins. Doesn't matter what your draw is, doesn't matter who you're playing, you need to be winning home games. If you win 8 out of 10 home games, you only need a couple of victories on the road and you're playing semi-finals. That's the importance of not being comfortable at home. The key isn't being comfortable at home. The key is making the other team uncomfortable at your home. Make them as uncomfortable as you can. Whether you've got to hose and saturate the away dressing room the night before, whether you have longer grass than any other ground, whatever advantage you can take it and make them uncomfortable. Make it hard for them.
Yeah, exactly right. And trying to at least win a couple games on the road as well, even though you've got to win your games at home also. So just to make that, cushion where you don't want to be leaving at the back end of the season and making yourself work to get into that top 8. You want to be in that top 8 already before the end of the season, which is important, because as a Warriors fan, we've seen in the past the Warriors have slow starts into seasons, and during Origin period, the Warriors seem to go quite well, win a few games, and then at the back end is when they drop off. That's been known in our history for the past couple of years. So, yeah, I think that's the main thing for me. But just going through some of the comments just here quickly. Port Hart is asking you, do you guys think that Kevin Walters can keep the reins tight in his hands with the Broncos? Yeah, well, what is your thoughts on the Broncos? Because their recruitment in the offseason has been pretty strong with the likes of Reece Walsh, who's come from the Warriors. Yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
I think the Broncos are a semi-final footy side. I think Kevin Walters is a first-grade coach. I think there has been a lunatics running the asylum type mentality at Brisbane. I think that's ended. Too much off-field crap, whether it's players being charged in court for incidents, at 2:30 in the morning, whether it's silly buggers on podcasts not saying the right thing. I think that ends. I think that ends. I'm a mate of Kevy's, so I'm probably a bit biased. In fact, I'll tell you a true story. Kevy was on the news up. Kevy was on the news up here in Queensland earlier, and it was a live cross to Twin Waters where Kevy was with the reporter. And as soon as I saw Kevy on live TV, picked up the phone and rang his number, and you can just hear it in the background. And he went to shuffle, but I got him.
Yeah, right. So just there's not many more comments. That's good. All right. So Andy, actually, it's been a joy having you on tonight. Really enjoyed having you. Your input and chat around rugby league, and you do such an awesome job. I admire what you do. You as a person who's just starting off doing content creating for a couple of years now. I actually started off in 2020 during the COVID pandemic. I started doing this YouTube channel, and I wasn't too comfortable in front of camera at the start, but I started to warm into it a bit, and I do it because I love it. I do it because I love it. I'm a massive fan of rugby league, big fan, Warriors fan. I've been a Warriors fan since I was a child. So that hasn't stopped me. Despite moving overseas, moving to Australia, I still call myself a Kiwi, proud born and bred Kiwi. So, I mean, it's been a joy having you on, Andy. I really appreciate you coming on tonight and giving up your time and having this chat with me. And I like to wish you all the best, for your podcast and all the work that you do for the next couple of years. And enjoy the footy season this year as well. Good luck to your Parramatta Eels as well, especially. Hopefully the Warriors and Parramatta can meet sometime in the final series.
It'd be nice, mate. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very nice for the kind words, Christian. Thank you to everyone. Dylan saw the message, mate. Really appreciate it. I'm delighted that I've gone 60-something minutes without picking my nose because I've had an itchy there from the start, but I haven't investigated it. Seriously, if any of you guys or girls are in Auckland at the moment and doing it a little bit tough, I mean, the weather event's just crazy. Please know that I and the team at Unfiltered thinking of you. In fact, all Aussies thinking of you. Stay safe, make smart decisions, and fight your way through it. Other than that, it's been a pleasure, guys. Been a pleasure having a chat with Christian and with everyone. And enjoy your footy in 2023.
Yeah, so I'd just like to thank the viewers for joining in and watching this live. If you're watching it back, comment your thoughts on how you thought the show went, and make sure you like this video as well, like the live stream, put the thumbs up on the video, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And go check out Andy Raymond as Unfiltered Podcast. I put the links to his podcast and his socials in the description down below as well. So make sure you go and check him out there if you want it. You got to highly recommend you check out his podcast. He does excellent work. So go and check him out if you want to listen to the general chats with the players, and he does some great work there. But thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a good night. Have a good rest of the evening. Have a good rest of the week as well. And I'm looking forward to the footy this weekend, the pre-season trials, and the upcoming season. Thanks everyone.